Welcome to the journey, and today's journey never expected to spend his life guiding others through a powerful psychedelic experiences or teaching men about conscious masculinity. For many years, our guest was a self-described pragmatist running a business, raising a family, and focusing on tangible results. Yet a persistent sense of something more led him to explore personal growth. And a pivotal trip to Peru, which we'll see in his image behind him in a minute if you're watching it, introduced him to, and I let him say the word, in Peru. So confronting old traumas, limiting beliefs, and a surprisingly fast inner life, our guest emerged changed. I'll say no more because I don't want to spoil it for everyone, but it's Michael's journey.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
you having me on here.
You're welcome. Now, I couldn't say that word, which was a what
Oh,
Y
that
A
is called ayahuasca. Ayahuasca
info,
in
but
Peru.
info, and that's just amazing. And from the outset, and I even said before I started recording, I love the backdrop you've got for your, backdrop. It
Mhm.
is the mountains of
It is.
Peru, and I assume you've been to this location.
I've been to this location many, many times. Um, just at the base of that valley is actually at 7,000 feet. The top of those mountains are about 12,000 feet. And the snow-capped mountains at the back are about 14, 15,000 feet. So it's
Wow.
quite spectacular,
Hmm.
beautiful area. One of the sacred sites of the world, like Mount Shasta is another one, Sedona, and there's other ones around the world. Uh, like the, and it's a
Yeah.
very powerful place to for healing and stuff. And that entire valley is there's a lot of seekers down there that have gone to visit or to visit or to live, from Western states, Western countries, in order to find, a greater sense of themselves, a greater sense of peace, a
Hmm.
greater sense of their spiritual nature, and whatnot. It's a very magical spot.
Yeah, and I find that with mountains because I've climbed Snowdonia in Wales in the UK,
Mhm.
and it doesn't do justice to the other mountains, obviously. But when I climb Snowdon, it is that sense of being with your true self,
Mm.
and I enjoyed doing it. And yeah, I was young when I first did it, and I was with my grandparents. They were alive, and where they lived was in like close proximity to Snowdonia, but I enjoyed it, and they said, "Where were you?" Because obviously I was gone all day. I was climbing at Snowdon, and it's just that experience of doing something. And when you do get to the top of any mountain, Snowdon, the mountains where you showed where you've been, there's always a sense of relief when you get to the top, and then there's a sense of calm.
Yeah. Possibly because you're exhausted from climbing up the mountain. You're glad
Possibly,
that
possibly,
you're.
but then you got the views, and then you say, "Oh my God, it's amazing," and so.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it does leave you breathless for that
Hmm.
perspective.
Yeah,
So going into the earliest memories possible, what you want to share, because you don't have to share everything, but if you feel comfortable, you can. Can you tell us what started your journey?
absolutely. My journey, in terms of the work that I'm doing now, didn't start intentionally for sure. I was, I'll give you the brief take is I was asked by a coach of mine to do something on my own because I was married at the time, kids, family, the whole business, the whole regular thing, fairly satisfied with life. A very typical, successful life. But this coach that my wife and I were seeing at the time told me that because we were so kind of enmeshed in our lives, that I should take some time for self-discovery on my own. And through a longer story that I don't have time to talk about here because it's just details, I ended up hearing about this uh, tea like tea like you drink over there in the UK, but has additional effects besides caffeine and some other positive products. It's a combination of two plants that grow in the Amazon. Um, it's B-cappy and is the plant vine that is known more commonly as ayahuasca, and another leaf from a bush called chacruna that has dimethyltryptamine in it, which is a DMT more commonly known. And these two plants are brewed together, and there's a visionary experience that's part of it that the indigenous in South America have been using for thousands of years. Um, at least that's what is understood.
Mm.
So I heard about this stuff, and I was kind of like, okay, well, let's go try it. Let's go see what all the hubbub was about, because there was some excitement about this at the time, and much more excitement now. I was not the earliest adopter, but 10 years ago, it was much less known than it is now. So I go to Peru, and at that time, I was what you'd call like a rational materialist, very much into the idea that everything is physical and not giving a whole lot of credence to this conscious experience, that there may be more to the world, to the human experience than meets the eye at first glance. And I'm flying into the plane towards Cusco, which is the nearest major town with an international airport, to the Sacred Valley, which is behind me here in the graphic for those who are seeing this. And I'm thinking, well, either there's going to be something on the other side of this journey that's opens me up, or it's just a nothing sandwich, and
Mm.
I'm going to be and experience the world as I have been, and I was actually perfectly fine with either of those outcomes. So I go to Peru by myself. I end up at this retreat center that I then in the following years continued to go once a year to it, and had just a absolutely profound experience in a room with like 20 people. Uh, Drank this very unpleasant tasting uh, tea, uh, and about 40 minutes later, started seeing visions, all this more than what we are normally have access to, and it changed my sort of conceptualization. I realized that some of my thinking was incorrect logically, and I consider myself have a science background, and I had kind of misapplied one of the foundational understanding of science. Science can tell you some things, but can't tell you everything, right? Whatever's,
Mm.
we're always moving forward in terms of our understanding of how the world works and whatnot. And I was very closed-minded in the past, and I awakened to this divinity, this connection with the rest of creation,
Mm.
and have been on a journey ever since to understand that world more. Went to Peru a bunch of times. Eventually, right after COVID started, uh, the retreat center that I had been going to, and after I'd been there a couple of times, they asked me to be a volunteer there when I wanted to go. Um, that place closed down, and some of the facilitators that worked there asked me if I wanted to be a part of rebooting a new and improved retreat center with a slightly different focus, but still doing ayahuasca and connecting with the indigenous traditions, or I should say the Andean traditions of their spiritual system down there. And I said yes to that, and have been helping and supporting that. That's Heart Sanctuary. And in terms of continuing on my path as a man, as a human in the West, um, I continued to work on myself. Um, Took some, a variety of coursework. I worked with a indigenous woman down in Peru to get some training on some of these um, on a bunch of ceremonial aspects that are contained there, and then started working with men in with a friend of mine, partner in this project called Men of Integrity, which we conduct in the United States, and we use expanded states in that
Mm.
don't serve ayahuasca, but we have other expanded states that we operate with. And it's been a profound journey of watching and helping and supporting men in this men in this Western culture to reconnect with themselves, and live more satisfying, more peaceful, and more purposeful lives. Um, we are, this is now expanded, it's grown, and we're going to be starting our first women's retreat at the end of this year because we want to be inclusive to all groups. So our first women's retreat is going to be at the end of this year. It's going to be run by women, but it's going to be the same kind of program that that we run for the men and have been running for, I think, 12 or 13 retreats now that we've done in the past
Mm.
3.5 years. Um, yeah, my life is profoundly different in terms of how I think about the world, how I think about myself, how I think about myself in the world. And it's been quite a journey, to use your podcast language.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the thing is, I always say this about the journey, and it's the ethos I've been following for a while. Originally it was like hashtag share wise word or two. But when you are on a journey, you got to follow certain things, I feel. And I always say you amuse, you educate, you inspire, you observe, and you understand. What I made that unique, if you want to put it, is because I used the five common vowels, A-E-I-O-U.
mhm.
But it's true, you got to be amused, you got to be educated, you got to be inspired, you got to be observant, you got to understand.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, you know, you said about being inclusive. It's not just about men, it's about women too. And I always believe whatever journey you're doing, if you go to a retreat, if you go to on a self-proclaimed car trip, car journey, or mountain journey, whatever you want to describe it, you're always doing something, and you've got to go either that, the left way, the right way, the forward way. You can't go back because obviously going back on yourself, you always make a mistake and you then go somewhere completely different. But if you're going forward, you still have those diversions.
Mhm.
In
Absolutely.
in life, how you described it, it seemed like you had a lot of distractions. Now, what you're doing now, you don't have as much distraction, but you're helping people overcome those distractions.
Oh, absolutely. And, the universe and life does, present its challenges at
Mm.
all times. It would be, I heard, I heard an analogy regarding when one has a problem or a bad day and wanting to not have problems, not have things. And the idea was to think of life as a video game. And if you didn't have any problems, it would be like the world's most boring video game. There'd be nothing to confront, nothing to overcome, nothing to do. Um, and so I kind of take that as kind of a motto, like watching things unfold and problems come, and do our best in every moment without, flowing. It's very important to not be in a controlling sort of ideation set that, because we really can't control what's going on, right? Um, so it's very, very powerful. And like you said, one of your words, a different word that you use means the same thing, awareness, because you need to go inside and see what's going on inside in order to progress in this
Yeah.
human experience.
And when you do get the inspiration, when you do become aware of certain life goals, life targets.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we miss sometimes when we're going for goals all the time and life targets is we miss the presence of being in the moment.
Mm.
Sometimes we get so distracted with the future. Oh, when this happens, then all will be well. And then that happens, and then there's another thing. It's like, and so you're always chasing the dog chasing its tail,
Yeah.
when and it distracts us sometimes from feeling really the glory, the peace, the gratitude, that we can be experiencing in every moment of just being. And
And
that's,
yeah, and you talk about it in such a way, when you do, and say, for example, if you are a norm, I'm not saying this is everyone, but if you're doing something 9 to 5, you got to put on sometimes a mask just to be showing that you're doing something, but at the same time, it's not about wearing that facial mask to, be you. You got to be true to yourself by allowing yourself to be you.
absolutely. Yeah, it's something you just made me think about with regards to the masks. Sometimes the mask is part of the job.
Hmm.
It's when you identify with the mask and you think that the mask is the true you. That's where we run into problems. You know, sometimes you need to cooperate or do something or in a way that, put on a happy face when you're going to a meeting because that's part of doing what needs to be done in the moment. But when you start to believe when you start to believe the mask, and my example wasn't great about putting on a happy face in a meeting, but when you start to believe that these labels that we put on ourselves are the actual you rather than being like structures that are on top of the centered you,
Mm.
that's when we get into trouble. We start to believe our own bullshit. So then,
Mm. Yeah, it's understandable. And that, like you said, the bullshit is there. You believe it. And the suppression of how you are, you go and do something, you become robotic in doing it. And
yeah,
that's the damning thing, it's like, you go into a job, you expect to be happy. You're not happy. You deal with the bullshit that comes in your way, but then you still have it on your mind constantly because got that mask on just to make it like I'm okay, but you're not okay.
yeah, and I mean that's a whole big part of the work that we've been doing with men and women. And also I work with men and women one-on-one as well, like in a one-on-one setting as
Mm,
well. But that's what we're trying to do is to find like, well, what's really inside there? What really needs to be expressed? What is that purpose that you're trying to articulate to the universe and to the rest of humanity? Those sorts of things that get lost um, through the process of growing up in the society, and then we get mired in certain expectations, beliefs, uh, traumas, all those kind of things that start to define how we look at the world and how we react to the world, and getting a little glimpse, which these expanded states are powerful, 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 powerful ways to shed those, to see more clearly what's going on without the filters of our, for lack of a better word, of our ego.
mm,
I'm not a huge fan of that word, but everybody knows what that means
mm,
to some extent or another. When I say your ego, because it means something. So when we're trapped in the idea of self, that we are a self, that we have this name, all this kind of stuff, and then we get disconnected from from our deepest self, which is you know doesn't have a name, doesn't have memories, doesn't have, an idea of the past or future, is just an observer. We get
mm,
closer to that, we observe, and we can move forward in this more peaceful, equanimous way. It is quite a beautiful thing. It's something
mm.
that is a life for most of us on this planet that are on this sort of path of self-discovery and to be better stewards of the world. Um, it is a lifelong journey.
Yeah, and you're always learning, and everyone, I believe, has got a purpose, even if it's a small purpose. Everyone's got that purpose to be here, to be doing something, to make that difference.
Absolutely, 100%.
And sadly, I'm not saying, like I said, when I do my research into certain things, it's only a small percentage that are driven to be that low state mind, but at the same time, they still got a purpose, even if you are at the bottom of the food chain or if you're bottom of the, society as it is, because how, in England and in America, but more England more so, you got three classes of people. You got the low class, you got the middle class, and you got the high class.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's in the same
And
thing in the United States. I think that's common in every culture on the planet at
mm,
these days.
and I don't judge that. because everyone's got to start somewhere. And I don't know if you've heard of the TV show Next Level Chef, but you got to start sometimes in the bottom level to work yourself to get to the top. But
Absolutely.
but at the same time, about ego, you can't be egotistic about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, it is, it also speaks to the video game analogy. You don't start, at the hardest level of the video game. You have to go through the bosses and the whatever the easier levels first. And life has gotten more challenging, I believe, at least in my experience and the experience of most people. Um, they've noticed that life gets more challenging as you go along,
Mm.
into especially into your 40s and 50s. But you have more tools, a deeper set and a deeper perspective from which to look at your life and understand, oh, this too shall pass. So it's quite interesting.
And you said the age range well, the 40s, 50s. That's the time where people will be looking up to you more because you've got that experience.
Absolutely.
Now, don't get me wrong, if you're in your 30s or 20s, you still have that experience, but people tend to not look at you as much because you're still young, you're still developing, even in your 20s and even in your 30s, you're still learning. I'm 41, I'm still learning myself, but I got it in a way that people do understand, and some people would turn to me and say, David, and then I would can give my advice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There does seem to be a turning point around 42, give or take a couple years where people do they're on the backside of this, of this lifespan, and they start to reflect differently. They start to realize that some of the things that they give a lot of credence to and importance to actually and start to don't quite matter as much as they've given it to matter in the past.
Mm,
The importance of success being defined a certain way. And they're like, well, I've had my success and it didn't necessarily bring me as much joy as I thought it would when I was on the journey towards that path. So what else is in there? What else is in there in that heart space that that I might be able to resonate with and identify and bring forth into the world, that will bring me, not to bring me more joy, but to bring more satisfaction and peace to my existence and into my life. It's
yes.
quite profound.
So obviously, the next question going into the present and what people can do to get hold of you. Is there any way that there is people can reach out and say, "Can you tell me more? Is there anything you can provide to help others?"
Absolutely. I mean, I am accessible on the internet, of course. There's a michaeltiernoguide.com, and I'm located in Northern California, just north of San Francisco. If they're interested in going to Peru, to do ayahuasca in what I consider now having quite a bit of experience in, not just with this group, but with having journeyed with groups both in South America and the United States with ayahuasca. I think it's the place I would send any friend without qualification. It's the place that it's designed basically for like how I would want a first experience to be in terms of ayahuasca experience. You could go to heartsanctuaryretreats.com. And if you're a man or a woman, just most of us, um, you can look at moi.community. moi.community, that's the Men of Integrity group. We do those retreats in the United States in Northern California. And those, right now we're doing 4 retreats for men, and we're going to start our first retreat for women that will be women led. And those are very, very, very powerful. You could consider the MOI retreat or Men of Integrity retreat to be a rite of passage for men, something that we have missed in the West. most indigenous cultures have a rite of passage where for both men and women, where they go from being, in the first stage of life and into the adulthood chapter. Um, and we've lost that in our Western society. And
Mm,
so Men of Integrity serves, most of our guys are in their, 30s and 40s, 50s as well. But the bulk is in 30s and 40s, to have that transformational experience, to get a new perspective on themselves and on their role and purpose in the world, and connect really with their deepest sense, to be able to be more vulnerable, expressive, more connected with themselves, to be able to respond rather than react to the circumstances they find themselves in, to find more gratitude in life, to be more compassionate towards others, and to realize what you were saying, which I thought was really important. You said we're always learning. That's
mm,
one of the big tenets of MOI, is to always be learning more, and if there was anything foundational with regards to that always learning, is to be better today than I was yesterday, and be better tomorrow than I am today. And what does better mean? It just means more at peace and satisfied with your life,
mm.
more able to tolerate challenging situations and meet them with a sense of purpose, and be able to express your purpose in your life. That's
Yeah.
foundationally what we're trying to get
Uh,
support people in doing.
and it is just that, amazing step which will make that difference if you approach it in the right manner as well. Because if you approach it in the wrong manner, don't get me wrong, you will get the results, but you still need to be somewhat positive to get the end result in such a way that you feel accomplished.
Yeah, and then I think positivity for the sake of positivity, it's good to keep your chin up, right? But sometimes there's a great purpose for that dark night of the soul, that heart-wrenching things fall apart. Maybe it's an illness. Maybe it's a job loss. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's these big life events, are known oftentimes to be transformational, because they shed away all the BS that you thought was important, and give you focus, to see, oh, I wasn't paying attention to this part of my life. I wasn't having deep gratitude for myself. Let's just use health as an example. I was taking my health for granted. Now I'm confronted by a challenge, a really devastating illness, or injury, or whatever. And it says, wow. And we know this every time we get a cold or something like that. You feel crappy for a couple of days, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to feel better. I'm in bed and knocked out. And then 5 days later, you have some gratitude for your health, and like, oh, I'm so glad I'm past with my cold. And then you forget about it. Typically we stop giving gratitude for the fact that we are healthy in these healthy bodies. And same thing, we could be struck by any sort of experience that kind of shakes us from being automatized in our lives. And it's very important, to move towards that space of gratitude, and move towards that space of wonderment and awe in the world, of like, it is kind of a crazy thing that each one of us finds ourselves on this planet. It's quite crazy that I'm crazy in the good sense of crazy, that I'm talking to David in England from California, and having this conversation. Like, that's an amazing thing on so many levels. And to find that grace that comes with understanding what a what an opportunity is to have to live this human existence. We don't know
Mm,
what happens afterwards. So we really need to find ourselves in the present and maximize our capacities for living this life as richly as possible. And I don't mean riches in terms of financial riches, is experientially, like, really savor the world, really savor this life.
yeah, I agree with that. So, to end the interview, I always like to ask guests to give some sort of inspiration to help them move on their journey. What would you say?
Can you please repeat that? Integration.
Basically, for the future, say for example, if I was a new person coming into this and I wanted to be inspired. What would you say to me to be inspired on my journey moving forward?
Well, I would say to the best advice I could give anybody is to slow down. Sounds trite and it sounds anything, but so often we can find so much more satisfaction and peace when we slow down. And I don't just mean when you're eating a meal, but I'm talking about in everything you do. When you're conversing with somebody, if you slow down, really slow down a conversation, you get you're able to be more connected with that other person, to really listen to what they're trying to communicate, to really approach them and interface with them with curiosity, with real, genuine curiosity, and hopefully lack of judgment. When you're doing your work, I tell my boys all the time, if you slow down when you're doing your work, your schoolwork, you'll actually you won't notice, but you'll get through the work will actually take less time,
Mm,
right? Then you rush and you make a mistake and all this kind of stuff. It's more enjoyable. You'll learn more. You're savoring life in every moment, and that is and you'll notice things that come up that if you're rushing through any part of life will pass you by because you're so focused on the next thing.
mm,
Just slow down and 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 recognize that it is a miracle. It is a literal miracle, whether you believe in, in divine stuff and source or in however, or in, in sort of, whatever you divide and believe spiritually, right? Even if you don't believe that, even if we were just made of molecules, the fact that we exist here and are having this human experience in this moment is a miracle by all definitions. And when we recognize that it is a miracle that we are here in the moment, talking to each other, drinking a cup of coffee, whatever it is, that taste, that conscious experience that we can savor of our lives is, I think, one of the best things that we can do to be better.
mm,
And
mm. I agree with that. And for the viewers, listeners, the links will be in the description below. But Michael, I'd like to say thank you for sharing your journey with us today. I hope people will take some advice from what they've heard and they will pursue what is truly for them.
absolutely, thank you. And anybody that needs to reach out to me or wants to reach out with me or has some curiosity about something that was talked about in this episode, I absolutely love talking about this stuff.
And that will be in the those details are in those websites you mentioned, correct?
Absolutely. And there's ways to get a hold of me. And, I'm always here to support.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Our thanks to our guest there for a wonderful journey. And now a couple of messages to share with you.
Hello, I am Amy Harrison. I'm the author of the book Feline Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, a fictional story that is written in a poetic format that is based on real-life events that could happen to anyone and intended only for relatable purposes. This story claws into Catgirl's past abuse. Catgirl is human and part feline, but truly a warrior who can handle anything because she is strong and fierce. She has been taken advantage of for far too long. Join her on her journey as she reaches freedom. Here are some poems from Feline Warrior. Tears flow. I no longer know what to do. I am no longer who I once was, and it is because I made a choice to use my voice, and that is okay, because what I had to say was true, unlike me and you. Now I see. I am free. I am me. I am Catgirl. Ultimately, be you. Always stay true. Do what you want to do, because every day is made new. If you want to read more, visit the link in the description. Meow at you later.
Music by Erica R. from Pixar Bay.
By Tim Parsons. The narrator is Kate Barton. Director and producer, Darren Street. Tim Parsons would like to thank family and friends for their support with the paramedic Chris venture. The series is dedicated to the memory of his father. Reverend David Parsons. Copyright Tim Parsons 2020, all rights reserved. Unauthorized use, copying or sharing of this audiobook is strictly prohibited. This has been a Voice Reel studio production for Tim Parsons.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I've just been listening to the Paramedic Chris children's books on audio again, and I just love it because they've given a tribute in one of them to my dad as well, who passed away a few years ago. I love audio books, and it's great to walk around, and it's great to sit at the computer, if you're out jogging or wherever, to listen to them as well. All 4 of the Paramedic Chris children's books are available on audio book from Amazon. Go and take a listen to them. You won't be disappointed. You'll hear what happens when a community pulls together and supports one another. The best thing is to pop over to my website, paramedicchriskidsbooks.org, and you'll see the links on the shop page. Keep safe, everyone, and thank you for being you.
The Journey podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.